On paper, AstrHori's 85mm 2.8 macro lens is a beast. It tilts and swings, hits 1/1 magnification, covers a full frame circle, and rides a clickless aperture ring for seamless video transition. AstrHori were kind enough to send me a review copy in FX mount in order that I can answer the following questions. Is it good enough to replace a simple technical camera in the studio, and can it hold a candle to a Nikon or Canon PC lens? And I want to know this because before switching to technical cameras, I used to use a Nikon PC 85mm 2.8 micro in the studio. The sad truth is that the overall quality of my work wouldn't have changed had I never upgraded from it to technical cameras. In fact, the only useful thing that technical cameras were capable of that the Nikon wasn't was native 1/1 magnification. If it's a technical review replete with important know-how you're after, check out Richard Wong's coverage. It's excellent. This review is largely anecdotal. While this lens's nicely damped waffle-patterned focus and aperture rings are pretty, they slip in the hand and are nigh indistinguishable by touch. The latter issue is due to the stepless aperture ring, which feels just like the focus ring. Stepless aperture rings, all the rage for filmmakers, are kludgy from macro and stacking work, where repeatable steps from focus to stop down necessitate firm aperture detents. The focus ring is tight, smooth, and precise, but it is crammed into too little space. This makes it difficult to confidently focus on anything, macro or infinity. A twist of just 110 degrees or so brings focus from infinity down to 1/1. Yes, most of that range covers macro distances, but in close-up work it is too tight to reliably cover all focus planes for a 1/2 macro photo stack. Most dedicated manual focus lenses stretch that range over at least 180 degrees, if not farther. At distances greater than several meters, there is very little play at all between a headshot and infinity focus. Here I photographed New Force's HEM2 earphone using the AstrHori as well as my go-to enlarging lens on a Novaflex Ball Pro TS. First, I marked focus poles with tape, leaving wiggle room for errors at both ends. Then, from the first marker, I took the first exposure, moving on to the next and next until I reached the last marker. The problem is that, including error room, the entire focus range was contained within less than 4mm on the focus ring. In the end, I was only able to take 7 usable images for an end-to-end focus stack covering a 1 cm object at 1/2 magnification. A minimum of 4mm focus travel for the subject alone would be necessary to ensure reliably tack-sharp macro stacks at 1/2. At 1/1, that distance would double. As a result, the HEM2 is left striated and unusable for any sort of publishing except for the artless mashup of savanna fauna and audiophilia. Contrast this with publish-ready results from the Novaflex Ball Pro TS combo, which returned 13 serviceable images due to its greater focus travel. When mounted to an automated focus stacker, the AstrHori returns great results, but no macro lens should need help focusing at 1/2. All this could be fixed by swapping the current focus helical for one at least twice as long. Because sharp third-party macro lenses can be had for chips, AstrHori really must sell tilt capability to differentiate it from the competition. Mechanically, its tilt innards are decent, bearing smooth and precise internal cogs. The entire lens can be freely rotated around the mount by 360 degrees in both directions. Minor detents mark every 45 degrees and the tilt mechanism reports 0 with a similar detent. But locks are too small and fiddly, if not painful to tighten, and fingers cover the tilt scale when adjusting the focus plane. AstrHori should copy the offset tilt scales of Canon and Nikon. While minor mechanical changes would make this lens comparable to first-generation tilt lenses from Canon and Nikon, its image circle is too small. Mild horizontal swings shade the sides of an X Pro 3. Vertical tilts, however, are much clearer and brighter. If it cannot comfortably cover APS-C, there is no way it is useful for full frame. Other reviews gave this lens a pass on APS-C cameras, making me wonder if their authors had ever used tilt lenses for anything but lens baby fun. Optically, I have only one complaint. Unfortunately, it is serious. This lens returns the most color fringing of any lens in my studio of any vintage. For both macro and distant shots, fringing eats up to 15 edge pixels anywhere outside of the center frame. Not only did this ruin the 1/2 stacking example shot stop down at f4, it doesn't go away until f8 to f11, long after the luminous benefits of tilting or swinging the plane of focus are exhausted. By comparison, the Gineron shot wide open at f4 shows no color fringing at all. Fortunately, the AstrHori is sharp both at macro distances and all the way out to infinity. Many dedicated macro lenses for technical cameras get worse the farther from 1/1 you get. The AstrHori's sharpness increases out to f8, after which diffraction softens the image. The Gineron, on the other hand, reaches peak macro sharpness at about f4.5. For distant subjects, it peaks at f5.6, but never reaches AstrHori levels of sharpness. 12 mildly curved aperture blades ensure soft bokeh highlights mildly stop down, but also make decent if not brilliant sun stars beginning from f4. They don't return the brilliance of Feuchtlander's 10 straight-bladed lenses, but they return clearer and cleaner stars than do most autofocus lenses. The AstrHori's bokeh is soft and free of centripetal pull and triangular highlights. A gentle outward push from the center is pleasing, and on APS-C provides a good combination of depth of focus and fall-off necessary for the trad-cath photographer to properly frame his dream girl in the wheat fields. Muted colors and contrast and lower black point make it appealing for natural subjects. But again, due to its cramped focus scale, even if your mirrorless camera has great focus aids, you'll find it more difficult to nail focus in comparison to the lenses of similar focal length when photographing distant subjects. The answer to the questions I posed at the beginning of this review, is it good enough to replace a simple technical camera in the studio, and can it hold a candle to a Nikon or Canon PC lens, is no. This lens is neither mechanically nor optically in the same league, but at $329 it doesn't have to be. What it has to be is competitive to other off-brand macro lenses. If it is, its tilt-swing novelty counts in its favor, but this raises another question. Is it more or less expensive than those same off-brand lenses? If it is more expensive, does that novelty make up for the difference? None of these questions would be necessary if it had a larger image circle capable of covering horizontal swing, it was free of purple fringing, and its tilt and swing mechanism and rotation locks were higher quality and better marked. Because the above sounds like a wish list for this lens, I might as well toss a coin. I wish that AstrHori got to work on a Mark II version of this lens. To be useful for macro, it needs greater focus rotation room. 300 degrees should do the trick. But if AstrHori really want to wow their customers, they should redesign a lens with a larger image circle. And if they go that far, why not fix the insane color fringing this lens outputs? The problem then is that it is no longer a $329 lens competing with other cheap lenses. In the end, I consider this a decent proof of concept lens, but AstrHori need to go back to the lab.